Some people say that there's a pier in Wigan town somewhere. George Formby said it led to sands on stilts up in the air. Some folks all say that it's a myth, but I don't think that they're right. 'Cause I once fell off yon Wigan pier, staggering home one night. 'Cause it's long and it's strong and it leads nowhere.
Just before the outbreak of World War II, George Orwell immortalised our town and left us with a legacy that long associated Wigan with families living in poverty, squalid housing, urban decay, social injustice and desperation that shamed the nation. It is a testament to our town and the civic pride of its citizens that you can't walk through Standish Gate without seeing people proud to wear tops that proclaim, "I love Wigan." There is much in our borough to be proud of. Orwell said he loved Wigan, the people, not the landscape. A landscape that has been transformed beyond all recognition since Orwell's day, with clean, bright open spaces and safe, secure, modern and well-maintained social housing for all. A place where new business and enterprise is able to flourish, and the council is proud of the massive investment being made in the town centre. Not least of all, we should be proud of the outstanding schools that deliver education and training to the highest standard to all young people in Wigan. This wasn't the case in Orwell's day, as he wrote. Working people often have a vague reverence of learning in others, but where education touches their own lives they see through it and reject it by a healthy instinct. But Orwell had a hopeful vision of how Wigan might look in the future that was strangely prescient. Skip forward into the utopian future and the scene is totally different. Hardly one of the things I have imagined will still be there. In that age when there is no manual labour and everyone is educated, it is hardly likely that father will still be a rough man with enlarged hands who likes to sit in shirt sleeves and says, "Oh, we're coming up street," and there won't be a cold fire in the grate, only some kind of invisible heater. The furniture will be made of rubber, glass and steel. If there are still such things as evening papers, there will certainly be no racing news in them, for gambling will be meaningless in a world where there is no poverty, and the horse will have vanished from the face of the earth. Dogs too will have been suppressed on the grounds of hygiene, and there won't be so many children either if the birth controllers have their way. While much of this vision of the future may have come to pass, and perhaps thankfully others have not, Orwell did not foresee the harsh economic climate our town would be thrown into as a result of the global financial crisis. We are the custodians of that growth, that change for the better that has seen Wigan transform from the squalid everyday horrors meticulously evidenced in the road to Wigan Pier to the modern, vibrant town rich with opportunity that we love today. The drive to cut costs, to make savings, should be done with caution. If we do not act now to preserve and maintain those services that have helped to create a just and fair society for all of Wigan's residents, then we risk returning to the society of the 1930s, divided by class distinctions of those who can pay and those who cannot. We should bear in mind that the force for change has been driven by investment in an education system that compares favourably against the best in the world. A well-educated population is our most valuable resource for the future, and any investment in young people now will be repaid tenfold in the future. As a parent living in Aspel, I am greatly concerned by the decision taken by the council to withdraw free home school transport to faith schools, a decision that can only have a serious negative impact on the education of our young people. Now I know, because I've spoken to them, there are a few in our town who think it's fair that parents should pay to send their children to a faith school, and I understand their point of view. Indeed, the desire to be fair and make unavoidable savings have been two of the main arguments made by the council to defend their decision. In the Observer dated July the 12th, Nick Hudson, Corporate Director from the People Directorate, Children, Adults and Families, a job title Orwell would surely have appreciated, stated, "Given the current economic climate and the council's need to prioritise funding for those frontline services people in the borough rely on, we undertook the review of the home-to-school transport policy." In response, I would argue that I pay the council tax quite a substantial amount of money each year to allow for the provision of many important and valuable services such as roadside care and refuse collection. I understand that I will not directly benefit from all of these services. I do not, for example, benefit from the support of adult services or social services, but I appreciate their importance to our community, and I am happy to contribute towards the cost of such provision. This is, I believe, the nature of a cohesive society. Similarly, taxpayers make a contribution to services that are of benefit to my family, for example, homeschool transport for my children. It is not fair to remove the entitlement to this provision for some parents and demand they pay an additional tax so their children can go to school. Even more unfair is that I shall continue to pay, through my council tax, for the free transport being provided to other families in the borough. This is not the way to build social cohesion. It also sets a challenging precedent. If the council can arbitrarily remove my entitlement to services that I am paying for through the council tax, perhaps I should thoroughly review the way the council spend my contribution and remove any payments for services I do not directly access or benefit from. These are, as Mr. Hudson says, difficult financial times. My family budget is stretched, and I need to look at making cuts. In the immortal words of that other famous political activist, Margot Ledbetter, when standing up for her rights in the face of local authority bureaucracy, a resident who also itemised the components of her rates bill scrupulously, I am the silent majority. And like her, I've itemised the components of my council tax bill based on the information I've been able to obtain from the council. Based on the assumption there are around 139,000 residential properties in the borough, each household is committing the equivalent of £557.55 each to adult health and well-being, £23.02 to building strong communities, £92.08 to audit, governance and improvement, and 72p to the Environment Agency Flood Defence Levy. As far as I am aware, I am not at the moment directly benefiting from any of these services, and I calculate I could save £673.37. I shall be drawing up an invoice and presenting it to the council at Gateway House in due course, and will of course appreciate prompt settlement. If the council were more efficient in collecting council tax from those who evade it instead of hitting honest hard-working taxpayers like myself with a double whammy, they could make use of the £6.7 million in outstanding unpaid tax. This would more than cover the estimated £500,000 the council is looking to save by scrapping free homeschool transport. It's perhaps worth mentioning that in the Observer, Mr. Hudson claimed the council hoped to save £4 million by scrapping homeschool transport for pupils attending faith schools. I raised this issue with Mr. Hudson and suggested he should retract the statement in the Observer. He dismissed the error as a slight confusion. I would like to borrow the council's dictionary so I can understand how mistaking £500,000 for £4 million is a slight confusion. I wish my bank manager were prone to such episodes. It makes it difficult to conduct a reasoned and rational campaign when the public are misinformed in this way, whether intentionally or not. I fully support the council's intentions to make savings and reduce the burden on council taxpayers. I read with interest, however, a comment made on wigantoday.net in response to the unpaid council tax that I found interesting and share here with you now. Perhaps it's about time we start taking these losses out of the wages of the rich fat cat types who run the council. If they're not doing their job correctly and efficiently, then they should take a pay cut. Instead, they would rather others take the pay cut and lose their jobs. I wouldn't go so far personally. I have, throughout this process, merely sought to engage in a dialogue with the council and have nothing but the highest regard for the vast majority of councillors and council officers who have, in the most part, been very helpful as I have asked for information and shared with them my concerns. It does seem, however, that a great number of hard-working council officers providing vital services have been made redundant, while the executive tier of the council doesn't appear to have been significantly reduced. I don't want to single anyone out. If no one came to empty my bin, I would be unhappy. If the corporate director from the People Directorate, Children, Adults and Families, for want of a better example, happened not to be around anymore, I'm not sure I would be excessively concerned, but I'm willing to bet the council will make a significantly greater saving to its coffers. It would in some respects, I suppose, be like asking turkeys to vote for Christmas. I could perhaps ask the question, but in his most recent communication with me, the executive in question stated, "I believe the Council has answered all the points that you've raised, and therefore any further correspondence is unlikely to reach a satisfactory conclusion. In view of this, I do not propose to respond to any further letters from you on this subject." That's me told then, isn't it? And there I was thinking I lived in a democracy with elected representation and paid public officials who act in my best interests. He isn't alone in not wanting to engage in a discussion with me on this issue. In the first letter to parents dated 14th of June we were told, Council leaders have agreed to adopt a new fairer policy on school transport that could save taxpayers up to £500,000 a year. I made a number of points to address the argument of fairness during the consultation. For example, parents in Aspel have no choice but to send their child to a faith school as there is no community primary school. My children go to Our Lady's Primary School, which is 0.2 miles from our home, a daily walk which takes 3 minutes. The school feeds to St Joseph's High School in Horwich, and we will be too low down on the entrance criteria for Rose Bridge, the nearest suitable school, even if they had any spaces, which they don't, as I inquired. I would invite any member of the council to catch a bus to Rose Bridge on a school day to arrive there by 8:45 a.m. I'd make a generous wager that they'd have to set off long before the cold grey fingers of dawn had begun to caress the horizon in order to avoid a long sit on the Wigan Road congestion car park. Furthermore, on the matter of fairness, with the information Mr Hudson shared with me, I calculate that I will have to pay £365.75 for my children to attend school. In addition to this, however, again calculated using the figures provided for me by the council, I shall continue to pay an additional £25.18 towards the cost of sending other people's children to school so they can benefit from free school transport, a grand total of £390.95. I have again requested a loan of the council's dictionary, as it must surely contain the most unique definition of the word fair. I have tried to engage in a meaningful discussion with the council. I conducted through research, provided strong evidence and carefully reasoned argument, and naively thought that this would lead to some meaningful debate around the issue. In reality, I've been left frustrated and disillusioned by democracy in Wigan. I feel I've done as much as I can acting alone. Well, almost. I was thinking of dressing up like Spider-Man and scaling the town hall, but even I have to concede that might be going a bit far. I was approached by a grandmother of a pupil attending my son's school who read my comments in the Observer about the consultation process, where 2,200 families took part and overwhelmingly spoke against the scrapping of free home school transport and had their view completely dismissed by the council. "Do you really think it will do any good?" she asked, with a dismissive air. There is a sense among the people of our town that their opinion counts for nothing, and as far as local government goes, they have no voice. Until this point in time, I didn't believe that, but after a long and frustrating journey through the council's political rhetoric, even I'm beginning to think they might be right. I would perhaps not go quite so far as Orwell when he said, "In our age, there is no such thing as keeping out of politics. All issues are political issues, and politics itself is a mass of lies, evasions, folly, hatred, and schizophrenia." Rather, I would agree with his statement that people can foresee the future only when it coincides with their own wishes, and the most grossly obvious facts can be ignored when they are unwelcome. I would make one more plea to the council. Don't ignore me, and don't ignore the facts. Reverse this decision now before it's too late and irreparable damage is done in communities across the borough. If the council does not act on behalf of the citizens of Wigan in a considered and measured way, making sure that the views and opinions of the voting public are properly represented, then we are in danger of creating for ourselves a less utopian vision for the future. One where young people gather in Standish Gate, wearing tops that proclaim, "I used to love Wigan, but not anymore."
Stand still, children at play where the work once called us. The work is gone, but we're still here, living on the